Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're jumping right into a really fascinating explainer breaking down Rajiv Talreja's core philosophy on building a business. Look, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by this relentless pressure to, constantly scale, secure massive funding, or become the next elusive unicorn, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today we're tearing down those get-rich-quick myths that literally clog up our feeds. We're going to rebuild our understanding of what actually drives enduring success. Because as you'll see, true business mastery, it relies on capability, not just capital. So let's get into it.
It's a pretty provocative question, isn't it? Are you actually building a business, or are you just buying an identity? It's absolutely crucial we start here. We really have to ask ourselves, are we chasing borrowed aspirations? Goals we just saw on somebody else's social media timeline? Or are we pursuing something genuinely authentic to us? Because honestly, so often we get trapped in this cycle of just wanting to look like a successful founder, rather than actually putting in the unglamorous work of being one.
1%. Seriously, just 1%. That is the reality. The business media almost entirely obsesses over the top 0.1 to 1%. We see the crazy valuations, the massive 9-figure funding rounds, the flashy magazine covers, right? But here's the catch. When something is constantly celebrated by the masses, it kind of becomes a toxic distraction. It creates this wild illusion that if you aren't raising millions of dollars, well, then you aren't a real entrepreneur. It sets this benchmark of validation that is, quite frankly, incredibly hollow for the vast majority of us out there.
Rajiv Talreja actually shares this fascinating insight he picked up from a marketing head at a luxury car brand. Get this, people are buying cars not to drive them, but for the unveil video. I mean, wow. They literally just want that one specific moment where they pull the satin cloth off the car, the party popper goes off, and some professional videographer captures it all for Instagram. It perfectly shows how modern hustle culture has completely prioritized vanity metrics and external validation over real, actual substance. It's basically just consumerism masquerading as achievement.
And that brings us to a massive misconception. We've all been taught that money makes money. But the reality? Actually, scratch that. The hard reality is that capability makes money. Look, money makes money for an investor. But for a business owner, it's your capability that actually generates the wealth. If you just pump capital into a business without having the right capabilities in place, well, that's just a really fast, highly stressful way to set your cash on fire. Debunking this whole get-rich-quick myth is absolutely step one if we're going to build a solid foundation.
Let me share a quick story that just brilliantly hits the nail on the head here. Talreja calls it the 30,000-foot illusion. He talks about this 21-year-old kid who comes to him with this brilliant, gorgeous presentation for a sustainable Tetra Pak mineral water brand. On paper, 10 out of 10. But in reality, 0. Why? Because the kid needed millions of rupees just to get started, but he lacked basic sales skills. He had no network, no operational experience whatsoever. He was literally just waiting for some angel investor to magically drop millions into his lap, all because his head was stuck in the clouds. He was chasing those media-celebrated 30,000-foot ideas instead of doing the actual groundwork.
So what should that young founder, or honestly any of us, be focusing on instead? Well, real growth comes from market strategy, product quality, sales processes, operational systems, and leadership skills, right? These are the unglamorous, behind-the-scenes engines of a company. Think about it. If you somehow raise millions, but you have terrible operational systems and horrible leadership, that money is just going to accelerate your ruin. It really is that simple. You have to earn the capability first.
So we really need to tune out all that media noise and start looking inward. Ask yourself, what is the voice of your soul versus the noise of the world? If you completely strip away the Forbes lists, the Shark Tank pitches, all of it, what do you actually want? Because if you aren't crystal clear on this, you're going to let the noise of the world hijack your psychology, and you'll just be left constantly feeling like you're never quite enough.
To help us find that clarity, Talreja introduces a really fascinating framework. The truth is, not everyone needs to build a billion-dollar unicorn. No way. In fact, there are 4 distinct, entirely valid end goals for building a business. They are income, identity, financial freedom, and legacy. And listen, none of these are better or worse than the others, no matter what those flashy magazine covers try to tell you. Let's break each one of these down so you can figure out where you truly fit in.
Okay, first up we have the income-driven goal. This means building a business simply to sustain your monthly household expenses and just live comfortably. If you build a business that consistently brings in a couple of lakhs a month, it fully covers your family's needs, and it gives you a good life, you are a massive success. Period. You absolutely do not need to be written about in some startup magazine to validate the fact that you're happily and successfully providing for your home.
Next, we have the identity-driven goal. This one is really all about personal victory and creative expression. Take, for example, a homemaker who, after her kids are fully grown, decides to start a small home baking business or maybe open a salon franchise. It might only pull in, say, 15 or 20,000 rupees a month, but hey, that's not the point. The point is autonomy. The point is having her children look at her with a totally new level of professional respect. Just getting the business up and running is the ultimate victory for her.
Then, there's the financial freedom-driven owner. Here, the entire focus is on using the business as an engine, a vehicle to generate really high cash flow. But instead of just blowing that cash to upgrade your lifestyle, you take those profits and you invest them into other asset classes. We're talking SIPs, mutual funds, commercial properties that bring in rental income, that sort of thing. And you just keep doing this until those assets generate enough return that you literally no longer need the business to survive. You've essentially bought your own freedom.
And finally, we have the legacy-driven goal. This is all about creating an enduring institution, right? A brand that's going to completely outlive the founder. Now, obviously, this is a massive undertaking. And yes, it's a completely valid choice, but the absolute key takeaway here is that it is a choice. It is not a mandate. You are definitely not a failure if you choose income or identity over legacy. The only real failure here is playing somebody else's game.
But look, no matter which of those 4 goals you end up choosing, you absolutely have to audit your underlying motivation. Are you operating on pure energy or impure energy? Are you driven by pure energy, like, wanting to earn enough so your family never has to fight over money, driven by actual love and connection? Or are you driven by impure energy, like starting a business out of revenge or jealousy, or maybe just to prove some annoying relative wrong? Because let me tell you, building an empire just to show off to people you don't even like, that's just an incredibly unfulfilling, hollow metric.
All right, so let's say you found your pure motivation. You built up your basic capabilities, and hey, your business is actually working. Great. But what happens when you need to scale up to that next level? Well, you're going to need a pretty profound psychological shift. Essentially, you need to stop flapping and start gliding.
Just try to picture the 2 distinct stages of a founder. On one side, you've got the hustler. They are frantically flapping their wings, they're super stressed out, constantly putting themselves on the line every single day just to keep the business barely afloat. But on the other side, you have the strategic leader. They are poised, calm, kind of like a duck just gliding smoothly across the water. Now sure, they might be paddling like crazy underneath the surface, but that frantic, chaotic hustle, it's been completely replaced by smooth, strategic execution.
Because here is the really harsh truth. What got you here absolutely won't get you there. Relentless, frantic hard work and grinding out 18-hour days, yeah, that might build your initial capability. It might even get your business off the ground. But if you want to scale out into an entirely new orbit, you can't just keep hitting that same rock harder and harder. You have to step back. You have to evolve.
So how exactly do you evolve? Well, Talreja puts it perfectly. He says, the most important human activity, especially for business owners, is thinking. It makes so much sense, right? True clarity, those massive strategic breakthroughs, they do not happen when you're stressed out, totally exhausted, and constantly grinding away in the weeds of your daily operations. No way. They only happen when you're rested, relaxed, and actually have the calm mental space to sit down and think creatively about the future.
I like to think of it as the Dhoni shift. Look at MS Dhoni. He started his cricket career as this incredibly aggressive, swashbuckling batsman, opening or coming in at number 3. He was all about sheer explosive physical impact. But as he evolved into one of the most legendary captains ever, what did he do? He demoted himself down the batting order to number 5 or 6. And why? Because he needed to spend more time actually reading the game rather than just physically playing it. He shifted from practice to poise. He made the shift to strategic thinking.
So, I want to leave you today with a direct challenge. You absolutely have the right to dream big. You have every right to want incredible things for your life and for your business. But the real question is, have you earned the capability to achieve it? It's time to stop chasing external capital and social media validation. Figure out what your true end goal is, lean into that pure energy, and start building your core capabilities today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.